Welcome back to the Mysidian Legend, the only FFTCG podcast that is based in Canada. If it's your first time listening, each week we cover our locals' experience, including our deck list, and how we will improve our play in the future. If we have extra time, or maybe we didn't make it out to locals, then we will highlight different cards or decks that we're working on, and more. So before we get started, I'd like to mention an awesome deal for my listeners. If you shop at Cards of Ivalice for your singles, you can use the promo code PORUMPALUM10 for your purchase. Doing so shows that you support the Mysidian Post and you get a nice discount on your order. So that's PORUMPALUM10 to get a discount from Cards of Ivalice. So today I'm joined by David. David, how are you doing?
Doing well, Alex. How you doing?
Well, pretty good. Just, working on the my new mic setup here, which is pretty nice for recording. And otherwise, just always theory crafting.
Yeah, when you send me that picture, you're looking like a real pro, the hanging arm.
Yes, I've got my
mic.
my arm to hang my mic and a pop filter, and so I can say P words like patriarch, popcorn, precipitation,
Palum, Porum,
porum, yeah. Okay, awesome, right? I should have thought of those first. Okay, so we're going to quickly talk about how our decks are going right now, because neither of us could make it to locals, so we've just been kind of working on our different deck lists, and we've been testing on Untapped Online together. So how is your FF9 build going?
It's going well. There's been some changes. Seeing some more fire, putting in the 3CP Phoenix, or not 3CP Phoenix, 3CP Vivi, 7CP Phoenix, and the Haste Sage gives it on that turn 1 haste. Also, I've started playing with the 3CP Steiner, which everyone just kind of wrote off, but it's been putting in a lot of work for me recently.
Yeah, so you already were pretty big on activation of your cards with Fairy, so now you have a 4 that activates super easily. And can you tell us a little bit about its action ability?
Yeah, so Steiner, you dull him, choose 1 forward, it gains 1,000 power until the end of turn. During this turn, the next damage dealt to it is reduced by 1,000, which is super sick when you pair it with something like, say, Belias or Clady and reactivate him.
Yeah, so it's kind of like it's like a 2K swing.
Yeah, I really like him as a blocker more, like, because you swing with him on your turn, and they think that they're clear, they swing, you activate him with Clady, block, becomes an effective blocker.
Awesome. So, and then for myself, I've been continuing to work on my Lightning Wind. I've got some new additions to the deck, which are mainly Bahamut Zero, and trying to figure out what to do with a couple of other cards like Adele and Rigdia. I want to cut down my number of Rigdias, but then I need them for Al Cid. But I also want to fit in an Adele, as it's not only a potent finisher, but it's also searchable off of Cid of Clan Gully. So it's just like a good addition in the deck. So kind of working on that. And I also have been playing my Mono Ice a little bit, and it's the same as my previous Opus 9 list, but now we've got the new Squall and the new Sephiroth in there, and both of those are super powerful.
Why would you want to cut Adele?
No, I didn't always have her in the list. She's been in and out because she's fairly easily removed. But I think in this specific deck, she's pretty good, and the fact that she's searchable makes a big difference for me.
I mean, you have so many things that are about 7K that I need to remove, like Cid, Brave Exvius, and Y'shtola when it's out there. So it's one of those things that Adele kind of goes under the radar because I'm too busy dealing with everything else.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just another haster, so there's certainly a lot of potential there, which is why I've been trying so hard to find a way to fit it in. I'm at that point of deck building where every cut is really tough to make, especially on my forward lineup.
Yeah, for sure. I get that. Like cutting 5CP Amaranth, it hurts.
Yeah, okay, that's a little different, because that's a card I think you shouldn't have problems cutting.
You would think, right?
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about our top 5 most impactful cards in Opus 10, and that's going to be something that's totally subjective, and I think that, you may agree or disagree with us, but we'll just kind of go over our logic for each one. And In my list, I've decided to not include starter cards. David, do you have any starter cards in yours?
I do not.
Okay, awesome. I think that there's some of the Wraith vs. Knight cards are really great. Vaughn is really good as well, and Terra. So I think that there's some that have already been in the meta for a bit, and we know they're good. So these are going to be like new cards that we haven't seen much of yet that we think are going to be super impactful, and we'll just kind of go through each of our own list, and we'll go from there. Okay, so for number 5, I have Feel Thanos, the Lightning Legend from the set. So Feel Thanos can cancel any abilities or summons he's targeted by that are cost 5 or less, or from a character of cost 5 or less, and he's kind of just like a big Arden, and I think that he's going to be just like Arden has been, where in some matchups he's going to stick on the board and that can win you the game, and then in other matchups I think that he's going to be pretty dead because he dies to EX bursts, he dies to certain decks like Fusoya decks, he dies to things like Bahamut Zero or maybe even 7 cost Odin, he dies to things like Famfrit, and he also doesn't have Brave, and he is breakable by combat, so he actually loses a ton of things that made Arden so incredible, but doesn't have that downside of being unable to block if someone sacks a character. So I'm having a really hard time evaluating him because I heard that he just cleaned up at our locals in Vancouver on Thursday, but no one had a way of dealing with him. But I mean, if he attacks, then he's not able to block, and if you leave him up to block, then you can party attack by him, and just make sure you have a couple of answers for him in your deck.
Just to build off of that, I think he's gonna end up being a lot more like Arden than you think. That he looks scary. You read his text and you think, "Oh, this is a scary card." But how often does Arden actually get played?
You're not wrong. I mean, there are decks that are very much they use Arden, and they have seen success, but it does get shut down by a number of decks, and any fast deck that sees an Arden, you can just sack. If you can sack a character and then attack with 3 to 4 people, then like you're getting by an Arden, so it's not that big a deal. But I think that I'm really on the fence, but I wanted to include it in the top 5 because I think it will impact some matches significantly, and people will have to plan around it.
Oh, for sure. Like I think he'll be in the meta, for sure. But I just don't think he's as scary as people were freaking out about when he was first.
Agreed.
All right, so moving on to my number 5, and this is kind of a let's call it an underdog card. I think it's going to be the new Caius.
Interesting.
I mean, with we're seeing a lot more multicolored decks, and I'm talking like 3 CP, 4 CP, or not 3 color, 4 color decks. And they're doing really well, and people are coming up with such creative things that I think his second thing of he gets put in the break zone and you got to move a character to the break zone, people are going to find a way to play around that and use it to their benefit.
Okay, yeah, I can totally get that. I mean, and just him being able to play something of a different color and get you color fixed in a 3-color deck is probably going to be pretty useful itself too.
Something I was thinking about for you, imagine you're playing a Fire, Lightning, Earth. Caius gets put in the break zone. You put Rampierre in the break zone, and then out comes 9 CP Shantoto.
Yes, yeah, that's something that I really want to try because I love that Shantoto. That is actually the most common use of Rampierre right now, is to play that 9 CP Shantoto, and there's actually been a few locals winning lists with the Rampierre 9 CP Shantoto, and primarily using Kane to break it, but some people are also using the new Garland to break it as well.
Oh yeah, I've seen it a lot online with the Kane.
Yes, that was already a great combo in the previous, or great card in the previous opus, and now it has a premium target to break, so that makes it really handy. Why don't you tell us about your number 4?
My number 4 is the Ice Legend Cloud of Darkness. Cloud of Darkness and Ice especially just keeps getting all these cool toys. Like you get the Sephiroth, you get Orphan, and Now you get Cloud of Darkness, and maybe Renoa as well. You flicker that effect, and it's tough. It's cool. It's scary.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's got a really good entry ability and then a super interesting build around ability for its auto ability on its attack. Do you see people building just like a lot of Cloud of Darkness builds?
I think he could end up being a two of in most mono ice decks, and
Interesting.
it'll close out.
Yeah, the hard part is I think you do need to work on um, protecting yourself from its effect, which makes you want to pair it with wind. But if you're absolutely able to always use your CP and attack with everything else first, which isn't actually conducive to its ability because you want people to dull and freeze things that maybe they could block with, then you could play around it yourself. But I think it's going to be harder to do that. I think you're going to have to dull and freeze your own stuff more than you think, and then you'll have to actually like have some sort of activation like Bart's and Wind.
So, yeah, I agree with that. But if you play front heavy in your main phase one, then maybe it wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, there's only like so long that you can do that because you'll want to hold on to certain cards and things like summons, or if you have backups, a handful of backups, or even if you've just played all your forwards, like at some point you're not going to have stuff to do with your CP, or you'll need to save it, so you'll end up dull freezing your own stuff, which isn't bad, especially as a finisher because you're finishing the game. You don't have to worry about the next turn necessarily.
Oh, for sure. It's a total late game card. You're not going to play it like turn one or something.
Okay, so my number 4 is Ash, which is one of the water legends for this set, and I think that Ash is feeling like she's pretty tough to fit into some water decks just because a lot of water decks are very refined, but I think that once people get her going, she's going to just take over games. All of her modes are powerful. They're all relevant in almost any deck that you could play her in. Similar to Wall, he's just like a solid card that can boost any strategy that you have. So I'm super interested to find out how many Ashes we're going to see at Worlds.
I really like her in a mono water Fusoya deck because you're just kind of you can filter through your hand, power stuff up, reactivate those Fusuyas.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much synergy in Modern Water for sure, and I think that she would just work well in some Water X decks as well. And I just think being able to filter your hand in general, just draw a discard, is so good. Just get rid of those extra backups and start drawing cards, and we're not really worried about Riku milling you out, so you can do it as much as you want. And also the wiping abilities is going to be really interesting on certain cards that want to go to the break zone. I think that that if it sees enough play, it could totally kill Earth playing Vanille.
Yeah, I think that's probably my favorite of hers is taking away those abilities. Because when I was playing her in my mono water, that was definitely my most used mode aside from give 1k to my water forwards.
Yeah, and I think that power boost is also going to be so significant in mono water. But okay, we're going to move on to my number 3, and this is a classic like top 5 list where I cheat 2 cards into 1 slot. It's going to be Reagan and Citra, the light and dark heroes from the set. I'm fitting them both into this slot because they just do the same type of thing. They're EX burst recursion on a really good, like a solid body, and it gives every single element great summon recursion for Citra, or elements that don't have backup or forward recursion in Reagan, and even in Lightning and Earth, who have some forward and they have some character recursion. You're still going to run Reagan in a lot of lists because he has a lot of synergies with dark cards as well. The Citra is really huge because I know that every element has those 2 CP standard unit backups to bring back a summon, but I would way rather play a 3 CP 7k and get a summon back, because that's happening at the fastest speed. It's happening on ETB speed. I get the summon back, and I also have a body. And if I've learned anything in FFTCG from Layla and Viking, that having bodies out is the best because they can attack, they can block, and Fail Thanos can do 1 point of damage to your opponent, and so can a Viking. So I think that just having these abilities on forwards is bananas crazy.
Bananas crazy. Well, Reagan was my number 1, so way to spoil that giveaway.
Well, no, you just spoiled it. That's insane, man. Everyone's like, they're gonna stop listening to the podcast now.
Oh, we already got Dave's number 1.
That's why we came. We lined up. We're here for David. Let's just face it.
Your view count just shot up when you put me on the show.
Exactly. So why don't you tell me about your number 3 then?
My number 3 is Squall. I think he's a cool toy that Ice just gets. Ice got a lot of cool toys this set.
Yeah, I think so.
When he gets to damage 5, he's doing 3 different things, and that's, you want to talk about closing out a game, but that will close you out a game. You can recur him with Phoenix. I think our locals player Brandon was right. He's a great Phoenix target.
Well, I think that that if we all listened to Brandon a little bit more, we'd all have a little more fun playing FFTCG.
I'd be going to Worlds.
No, but he's totally right. It's an awesome card, and I also have this card on my list somewhere. Who knows? But we'll get to that we'll get to that in a minute. What about your number 2?
My number 2 is Sid Brave Exvius.
Ooh, okay.
Just after playing it used so many times and it's shutting me down. And there's so many cool abilities right now that involve things coming for free, whether it be flickering or Phoenix or Earth doing some crazy stuff. And it just shuts all that stuff down. And there's been several times where his special has just won you a game.
Yeah, no, he's definitely very strong. And the one thing I want you to keep in mind, though, is that I'm playing him in a deck that is so specifically tailored to him. So he's going to see a little bit of a drop-off in just like your regular deck as a tech choice. And you'll probably won't even see people running 3 of him for the special unless, again, it's really part of their game plan. But I totally agree. He is just shot up in the rankings for me as a powerful card, much more powerful than I gave him credit for when he was spoiled.
See, I thought he was always a crazy good card, and I think that he's a good enough card that he's worth building around.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, just imagine if we were in a meta with no cheating in cards, then you wouldn't really play him. And I know it's kind of silly to say, but there are some decks that don't really do that. So when you play a card that is dead in certain matchups, that's where it's harder in FFTCG because we can't side deck and we're not playing like a best of 3 where you can use your knowledge of what someone has to save a card for the second game. So when you're playing this best of 1 format, it's really hard to include silver bullets. So that's why if you're not building around him, you're just slotting him into a mono win deck, he'll be hard to justify sometimes, especially depending on how big decks with Phoenix are, or maybe how we're not seeing many decks with kind of like value plays like that.
No, that's fair. But I think if you're going to completely build around him in a win build, you're playing Aeriths and other things that you could protect him with.
Yeah, totally. I agree with you there. Okay, so my number 2 is Gilgamesh 11. So he is a card that...
My favorite, nice.
Yeah. Honestly, the reason he made it up so high in this list is partially due to playing against you. So he's consistent recursion, which is very, very strong. His self-protection is incredible, and as you've shown me in a water deck with Waka, he becomes very difficult to ping off. And then all of a sudden you have a hard time removing him, but you also can't block him very easily because he's 10k and you need to combo to finish him off. And then that's where your Minwu just totally makes him very difficult to deal with. So your only choices at that point are to dull and freeze him or to just get really, really big. So that makes it really hard to deal with him, and then he just starts to get value over and over and over. And I just think that he's going to end up being in a lot more decks than people were expecting. We actually just saw the winner of the Ultros Cup in the RVA tournament. They were running a Gilgamesh deck as well as Xande, so they had a ton of recursion from the break zone. It kind of makes me think with this card and Rampier and some other recursion cards that maybe 5 CP unit will come back into the meta. What do you think?
Well, I think we say that 5 CP unit is going to come back in the meta every single set.
You're right.
We'll just don't play 5 CPU anymore.
Well, I mean, a big part of that is there's so many forwards that you just don't want to bounce. So do you
Yeah,
have any?
that's a big thing too.
Yeah, but I mean, you've played with Gilgamesh a lot more than I have. Do you have any thoughts on him?
I mean, I think I told you most of my opinions on our last video. It's just so hard to deal with. He keeps bringing back stuff, and if you bring out another lightning rod like a 2 CP Zidane, or if you're bringing back Porums just for blockers to get summons back, it's great. Like, deal with it.
Yeah, big time. So where are we at right now? Because I didn't keep track of this. Have we done your number 2 yet?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So
So
I'm going
we're
over
on your number one.
my number 1. Okay.
Well, let's talk about my number one because we've already talked. I've already spoiled it, and then we can
Oh, that's a good idea. I
drum
like
roll
that.
your
Okay.
number one.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. So my number one is Reagan. I really like Citra. Don't get me wrong, but I think Reagan just does. It has more of a fit with the dark package because you have Camelot, Chaos, and et cetera, et cetera. You have all these other dark cards, and then all of a sudden they have worth when they're in your hand because you can actually get them out of your hand. They're not just stuck there, and you're getting a removal. What is it? Minus 8K power. Sorry.
I think it's -7.
Hey, well, regardless, that's really good. I think minus 7K power is a lot more effective than 7K damage.
Yeah, I wonder if he should go into my Wind Lightning deck. He would actually be
You
a
gonna
really
play
good.
more dark cards.
Well, he would just be really good for recurring like Aluas for specials or grabbing back like one Adele or just maybe getting some more power reduction to combo with things.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that online where they've played a Reagan, got back a special. I think somebody Sid specialed me 3 times
Oh my gosh, on Untapped?
on tap. Yeah.
Oh, that's tragic. So my number
General,
one
rip.
is I'll read the serial number for you. It's 10 113
goodness.
C G Diver. No, I'm just kidding. It's Squall Legend.
Oh my God.
Had you go in there for a second. Okay, so I also put Squall on my list, and it's because he has incredible abilities, and every single one of them is relevant. It resolves in the order of your choosing, so he's easy removal, and at 2 damage, he just becomes a 3-cost Genesis that can target backups. And he's just a strong forward because he's on an on-curve body. He fits well in any ice deck because he's only 3 CP, so it's easy to play him in different Ice X decks, so we can expect to see a lot of this guy. I want to Dull Freeze a Fusoya with him because, screw Fusoya.
Yeah, you hate those moon flavored cards.
Yeah, well, you know what? Actually, Fusoya is a good guy. He helped out some adventurers and kind of saved the world, so he's okay. Maybe it's Aromas that we should be directing our ire towards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so before we go, we're gonna do one more thing, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk
I
about
love
Sky
that we're
Pirate.
both listening to Brandon,
Yes,
and,
no,
and Squall is on both of our lists.
right? Yeah, he's a huge influence on us. Okay, so we're gonna talk about Sky Pirates because there's just so many different choices to make. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask these questions to David, and he's gonna answer all these questions for all the different choices you can make for Sky Pirates.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so let's get into that next. All right, so I have 5 questions for you, David. So we're going to get into it. The first one is, what do you pick, the forward Fran or the backup Fran?
Great question. I feel like you have to go with the backup Fran from Opus 9.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Well, what's the pros and cons?
Well, the pros is that the cost can be reduced by something that searches for her anyways, so that's a plus. But then with Sky Pirates, you have a lot of things that are going to chump block or chump swing, and then you can combo it with dealing 6k damage. And I just feel like the forward, it can just be irrelevant in some games, honestly.
Yeah, I don't rate the forward that highly right now, and we'll see if that changes. But I definitely agree. I think that the backup Fran comboing with Balthier, being able to search a backup and play it for 1 CP and then have relevant ETB and exit ability, I think that's all just really good. And having a backup Sky Pirate job is also very strong, because then you just always have more Sky Pirates for any ability that doesn't specify number of Sky Pirate forwards. It just says Sky Pirates. Then that helps out quite a bit. So I think I'd probably lean that way too.
Wow, we're in agreement for once.
Yeah. Okay, so the question number 2, choice of Vons, and you don't have to pick just one. There's the Opus 5 starter Von that activates all your Sky Pirates. There's Opus 10 starter Von, which plays your 3 cost from your deck, and then Opus 10 Hero Von, which is the finger smelling grow bigger Von.
Well, I do love my finger smelling characters. But I'm going to probably go with the 5 CP Vaughn from Water in Opus 1. When Vaughn enters the field, it forms a party and attacks, draw a card, and then discard one from your hand. It's great for hand fixing,
Yeah, so you would run that over all those other Vaughns, or would you run a mix of Vaughns?
I love that you're taking me seriously.
Well, I don't know. I don't want to offend you.
Oh, now you're not afraid of offending me. If I had to pick, it's tough. I think I would probably run a hybrid of the 2 CP from Opus 10. For each active character you control, Vaughn gains 1,000 power. And then the starter Vaughn. Because the more, obviously, Sky Pirates you have, the more effective he is. So, say, as we were saying before, we're going to play with the Fran backup. Maybe he comes in for free if you have 4 Sky Pirate backups or something.
Well, there's only 2 Sky Pirate backups, Tomaj and Fran, so you get a 2 CP discount.
Right.
But okay, it does activate all your forwards.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's worth it in itself. And if you're running a hybrid with the 2, like, he has a special that's very relevant.
I think so, especially in a deck where you can search backups with possibly with Pinello or with other cards. I think that late game, that special, it's like Pyro something, is actually pretty good.
Pyroclasm.
That's such a cool name. Okay, the next choice is our choice of Balthiers. Would you run the Opus 2 Rare Balthier that searches for Fran, or would you run the Opus 2 Legend Balthier that can ping?
I honestly think you run both. It's kind of a pain situation. I think you run 1, maybe 2 of the Balthier that searches, because you have extra in your hand. That makes it relevant for the Legend that has a special anyways. And then the 4 CP Balthier pairs with the Fran, because Dull, deal at 2,000 damage. Then you crack Fran, it's another 6k, and then that gets rid of your stuff.
Now, is there any world where you play the Opus 5 starter Balthier, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, and add a Sky Pirate to your hand?
I don't think so.
The one thing you get out of that is possibly some flexibility, but also a 3 CP 7k rather than a 3 CP 6k, but I think I still prefer specifically getting a backup, playing it, and gaining value that way over the risk of the reveal 5 cards.
Especially when that backup you're looking for is going to be a 1 CP now.
Yeah, exactly. It's just such an efficient play.
And at least with my Sky Pirates build, it's all your backups are super cheap. So you're not really looking for any specific Sky Pirate, like, oh, I just want a Sky Pirate in my hand. Like, no, you get your Fran and you get your cheap backups down, get your 5 backups down.
Okay, so speaking of getting your backups down, which Pinello are you going to play? Is it going to be the Searcher Pinello that can search for any Sky Pirate, so that includes a backup Sky Pirate or a forward backup, or a forward Sky Pirate?
A forward backup.
Yeah,
Yep.
hybrid forward backups, or that would be kind of cool. This backup can become a forward until the end of the turn type of thing. Maybe that we'll see that one day. Or would you pick the booster Pinello that can limit your deck building a bit because you want it to be active? So that means you need Sky Pirates and Pirates on the field. So which one of those would you pick?
Um, I've tried both in my Sky Pirates build, and honestly, I really like the 2 CP power booster.
So in that case, what forwards are you running?
Oh, making me pull up all my stuff here. Um, Pretty much everything is Sky Pirates. I'm running Philo, Els, uh, times, Rickens, Raz, Redis, Balthier, Vons. So the only non-Sky Pirates I'm running are, spoiler alert, YRP, which we're gonna get to in a second here. Zidans, and because obviously I need my Final Fantasy IX character,
Yeah, of course.
and of course, naturally, and Rex.
Oh yeah. Okay, Rex, who's an interesting inclusion. Um, I actually prefer the 4 CP Searcher Pinello personally, but I totally see the benefit of the 2 CP one. I just want to run so many cards that aren't Sky Pirates that, why am I even building a
That's not
Sky Pirates deck?
Sky Pirate deck anymore.
Right? But at the same time, there are just some really good inclusions like Y'shtola and Zidane, things like YRP, etc. So I think that, I don't know. I don't know if Sky Pirates have an issue of being large or not as well. If that's really their game plan, or if they're more focused on winning a game quickly and being efficient and getting out on board, and so we'll see how it pans out. But I think that either one is good.
What I compare Sky Pirates to is it's the only real job that they've invested heavily in, other than Knights. And Knights is all about getting your characters big as they can, and then Sky Pirates, it's kind of tough. Like, other than just doing the wind water thing of going wide, I'm not sure what their game plan is. Like, what's their game?
Yeah, I think it must be just to like try to win a game quickly and flood the board, which is why I definitely want Y'shtola in there to protect my board. Okay, but final thing we're going to talk about is the inclusion of the YRP package. So this requires the dedication to giving deck slots to Valfor, possibly Shinra, obviously Rikyu and Yuna and Pain, and you're probably running your 3 CP Pain with your combo abilities, but also your Searcher Pain, and then even stuff like Fina. And Fina's pretty good because it combos with Valfor for board clear, but it also, you play Fina and then attack with all your weak Sky Pirates and force your opponent to trade or take damage. So where do you fall on including YRP?
I fall into the including, obviously, because I just went over that. Um, it's mostly because Yuna and Veilfor make it worth it, because Sky Pirates have some ping to it, and if you're running, say, like a Bismarck or a Kukulane, it's really the only way you're going to get your forts to win some battles, right? And then if you can get the added value of a Pain, you might as well.
Yeah, and that's part of what I also run YRP in mine currently. That's also why I like that 4 CP Pinello, because you're just basically setting up as quickly as possible, and when you get as many backups down as possible, and then you can Val for, you get full value from it, and I think that is easier to do with the 4 CP Pinello. So I've also been experimenting without YRP, and by experimenting I mean theory crafting. I have not played it, and it's kind of interesting because it opens up more options for different forwards in your Sky Pirate deck, but then your backups, you just run more EX burst backups like Echo or Merleweb, and I think that also could be pretty decent in Sky Pirate. So I'll have to actually play that list and see if it's kind of compare the two of them.
We'll just have a Sky Pirates mirror match.
That's actually a really great idea, and then we'll talk about it at some point. Okay, do you have any closing thoughts on Sky Pirates?
I think they're pushing this tribal way too hard the past two sets for how much success it's going to see. I don't think it's going to see any success anywhere. Like Knights didn't see success, and I really don't think Sky Pirates will.
Yeah, it needs to get something as powerful as the 4CP Y'shtola for Scions, or something like, well, it remains to be seen, but currently something like Rain in World of Final Fantasy, or Ace in Type 0, but even Type 0 has kind of dropped off the map a little bit, so we'll see if these job archetypes can be, or category archetypes can also be successful, or if it's just going to be Scions that sees play.
Well, whoa. Category does just fine.
I don't know. I can't think
As
of
long
any.
as that number's 9, you're doing fine.
Oh, yes. Category 9. It's, yeah, it's okay. You do all right.
I do all right.
Okay, so that's going to be it for today. Thank you so much to everybody for listening. And don't forget to use that promo code PorumPalum10 at cardsevilise.com to get a discount on your order. So you can also read my articles at themysidiapost.com, and you can check me out on YouTube. So throw me a like on Facebook and a subscription on YouTube to show your support. And finally, a big thank you to FF Decks for all of their hard work. FF Decks, thank you. So David, say goodbye.
Bye, guys. And Alex, where's your sign off?
Oh, well, thanks for listening, Mysidians. We'll see you next time.
Mysidians?
Yeah, Mysidians.
Call them by the proper name.
Well, what's the name that we're going with now?
I think you set the tone last time.
Well, you called them Lunarians. That was you.
I had a gun to my head.
All right, well, we'll see you later. Regardless if you're a Mysidian or Lunarian, we love you equally, and we wish you both success in your respective planets/moons. All right, until next time.